Hello, and welcome to my presentation on modern urban sprawl. From the 1950s onward, millions of Americans left cities to go live out in a land called suburbia, a land of which many of you have grown up within. It was a new invention at the time, and has now survived several decades as more and more housing is constructed outside city limits, though little did people know that such a system would lead to modern day problems of which were completely unpredicted. This problem takes the name urban sprawl. Now I know what you're thinking. Why is this relevant to my life? Well, the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs predicts by the year 2050, 68% of the world's population will be living in urban environments, meaning that almost three-fourths of people will reside within city metropolitan areas. Urbanization is the future, which is why modern urban sprawl is an imperative topic to withhold knowledge about in the future. When it comes to my own personal connection to the topic, I myself have been raised within a suburban environment, and one day I would like to live within a city. So such a topic is relevant to my future. I have completed my research by reviewing studies as well completed by the EPA, the Journal of Economic Perspectives by Thomas J. Nichiba and Randall Walsh, as well as reviewing the problem of urban sprawl by Thomas Laidley. Now, modern urban sprawl is a topic that holds major relevance in current leading cities, and it is necessary to understand for the contemporary city living individual. Within this speech, I will be reviewing urban sprawl within the context of commuting, water distribution, and socioeconomics. Yet before we review these three categories, we must first define urban sprawl. As defined by Encyclopedia Britannica, and also called sprawl or suburban sprawl, it is the rapid expansion of the geographic extent of cities and towns, often characterized by low-density residential housing, single-use zoning, and increased reliance on the private automobile for transportation. Now, with an understanding of urban sprawl's definition, we move in to the subject matter. One of the first major components of urban sprawl consists of commuting. Now, as the diameter of a city increases, so do the lengths at which people must commute from suburban environments in order to get to work. For instance, if you live in White Plains, New York, the commute to New York's financial district would be 45 minutes, while the commute from the Bronx to the same location would only consist of 25 minutes. This is due to the Bronx's much closer position to New York's financial district and the financial center of New York than White Plains, a suburb's position, the same relative to New York's financial district. It is also difficult to supply distant suburban neighborhoods with public transportation, making cities reliant on private cars. According to the U.S. Department of State, 85% of Americans get to work by car. Such Americans, as they try to get to work, also experience the statistic that average Americans spends 17,600 minutes behind the wheel a year, a majority of that time being within gridlock. Water distribution is another key aspect of urban sprawl, which also must be understood as well. As more suburban neighborhoods and communities are built, water must be pumped farther and farther distances to cater to such places. According to the EPA in the United States, the average household leaks can amount for nearly 10,000 gallons of wasted water every year. This issue is being combated by buildings that now contain self-sustainable water supplies, which refilters drinking water. Many structures within urban environments have become self-reliant through this matter. Also, the average suburban household, according to the USGS, uses around 80 to 100 gallons of water per day. One third of such belongs to landscape irrigation. Next, we move on to the socioeconomics surrounding urban sprawl. When trying to understand the socioeconomics around urban sprawl, we are basically trying to understand how such a concept directly affects people. First of all, as more roads, bridges, public transportation, and other forms of public infrastructure are created and maintained, taxes must increase. It is no surprise that most cities that have the greatest issues pertaining to urban sprawl have the highest tax rates, such as New York City, New York with an 8.82% income tax, Los Angeles, California with a 13.3% income tax, and Washington, D.C. with an 8.95% income tax. Instead of collecting massive amounts of taxes to maintain this infrastructure, what some cities are starting to employ is the use of private contractors who take on the risk of building higher rather than outward. Also, fixed costs, such as the cost of purchasing mass amounts of land as well as the cost of having to redesign housing options, can be offset by building higher structures. Legal fees can also be offset since federal laws only tax buildings more if their structure rises higher than 40 stories, meaning that this regulation is generally low and tall structures can be created with relative freedom as to height. As technology increases, this regulation to height will also increase as well. All this sounds well and good, yet is humanity really capable of transforming such massive amounts of land and urban environment as to be capable of handling more people? If they were in the 1800s Paris, they are now. An example of massive an example of a massive problem with urban sprawl would be pre-Haussmann's renovation of Paris. This renovation took place from the years 1853 and 1870 within the French capital, and it was commissioned by French Emperor Napoleon III. Before such a renovation, the city was stated as incredibly overcrowded, dark, dangerous, and unhealthy. French social reformer Victor Considerant wrote of the city before renovations. Paris is an immense workshop of putrefaction where misery, pestilence, and sickness work in consort, where sunlight and air rarely penetrate. After Reconstruction, Paris became a city with wide boulevards and massive parks, earning itself the post Reconstruction nickname, the City of Lights. What this indicates is that if a large metropolis such as Paris is able to go under a massive city renovation in the mid 19th century, we are most certainly capable of doing the same today. There are many more areas of urban sprawl that apply to modern day urban environments, although commuting water distribution and socioeconomics are the most important topics. As well, we can see from modern day society, urban sprawl is becoming a prevalent issue. Yet it is going unnoticed due to current overriding topics in politics. One day, as we push city limits out too far, this matter will only be pushed forward. Are we truly ready for that day to come? Thank you for listening.